I'll be honest, I have been playing some stuff, but it's for the next video, so I cannot really talk about it. You'll hear my thoughts in that video. Um, it is a multi-game video, so ooh. But on top of that, I have been playing a couple other things. One of those has not been Street Fighter 6. I did apply for a closed beta code. Did not get one. I was refreshing my email the day of. Never came in. So I guess I'm not a big enough influencer to because it's funny, right? Like, oh, it just so happened that all the notable fighting game YouTubers and streamers got beta codes. How random. It's nothing against them, of course. It's just I got to get to that point where they're just gonna give me a code. That'll be so cool, man. This podcast is like my long con game to eventually just. I need this thing to get big enough that publishers and developers will just hand me codes to games so that I can ramble for like 30 minutes about them on this podcast. That's the real goal. That's the real goal. One time, Max and I were talking about YouTube, and he asked me like what my end goal was for my channel, and I really didn't have an answer, but I thought about it some more, and I realized that my ideal state, like my vision of success, is that I get to a point with the channel where I am making enough money to live relatively comfortably, and I can buy as many video games as I want. That is pretty much my ideal goal for my channel. That's where I want to get to. I want my hobby to facilitate my laziness and my decadence. So, specifically in the realm of the one entertainment medium I actually really care about. So, thank you for everyone who supports me on Patreon. Anyway, we're not there yet, so I just have to sit here in silence as I watch a bunch of footage of the SF6 beta. And to be honest, I'm not, like, upset. I'm actually not really upset. I'm a pretty patient person, like... one of the games I was anticipating the most, excuse me, in the last like year or 2 years was Strive, and then they did the betas. They did like 3 betas. All of them were just on console, so I couldn't play them, and it didn't really bother me too much. I was like, all right, well, I'll just get the game when it comes out, and I will do that with 6 because, my goodness, does it look good. I will share, I guess, just some brief thoughts about how it's looking so far. Wow. I'm really on board with pretty much every decision that they've made. I love seeing all the fucked up, horrible characters that people have made. Shout outs to all the people who are just, like, literally walking penises. Just walking around with like really short, thin bodies and like bald heads and like tiny little T-Rex arms, like no shoulders, and just like really big, like really short legs with big thighs and calves and stuff like that. Shout outs to those guys. Shout outs to everyone who's just playing like a space being where they just have glowing white skin. I think you can do other different colors. I'm not sure. But it does throw back to the completely cursed Street Fighter Cross Tekken character customization where you could just make like Ryu glowing green neon chrome man, and it was bizarre. Yeah, they're bringing it back, but hot damn, the character creator looks legitimately really deep. It looks really good. From what I can tell, it's been partially lifted from the like Monster Hunter character creator and kind of excuse me, kind of a souped up or extended, improved. It's that with a little more development on it, and like a ridiculous amount of customization that you can do with literally everything about your character. It's like it's gonna be the Chimera land of fighting games. No ability to play the world tour, which is honestly the thing I'm probably the most interested in. Now that we know the full roster, pretty much. Like, I'm curious definitely about, what new stuff did returning characters get? What did the new characters play like? But the excitement of, like, ooh, who's this person, is a little dampened by the leaks. But, hey, what are you going to do? The World Tour mode, thank God that they had, a really interesting looking single player mode, because that is now what I'm most curious about. Like, I legitimately see myself going and creating a little character and then playing the single player mode, and it being intriguing. Or something that I at least want to check out. Of course, there's the possibility that it comes out kind of boring or half-baked or, maybe repetitive. I have no clue. But hey, if it's good or even pretty decent, that's a huge win for being like the first attempt at something like this on this scale. And at least, there's like the Conquest mode from MK Deception? Armageddon? I forget which one had that. But just down to the character creation stuff, really cool. Oh, and the fact that you can actually, because obviously, everything in the character creator has like a value, as in nose width. Oh, you have this much nose width in the engine. Like, it's, it's a slider, but really under the hood, it's just a number that's going up and down. There are literally there's an option, you can just click a button and you can see the character recipe is what they call it, which is just, here is the specification of every single thing that this character, every single feature measured, in engine units or whatever, which is really neat. Also, options. Now I'm an options freak. I love having a lot of settings. The first thing I do when I boot up most games is I go to the settings and I check things out. There are some really good ones this time. A lot of accessibility settings, which is very nice. For instance, for people who are hard of hearing, you can actually have, I think, you can have sounds. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but there's basically a slider in the audio sections for a sound based off of how close the opponent is to you, which is really cool. That's great for people who are hard of sight, I guess, hard of seeing. Who maybe have diminished eyesight or just totally blind. That's really cool. There's also just things that might be generally useful, playing a sound effect for when you get crossed up. That seems like a thing that's actually just useful. I remember back in League of Legends, there were certain accessibility settings that a lot of people just ended up playing on because they were actually just good. Like playing in colorblind mode was actually way better because for visibility on things, because by default there's a lot of spell effects and things in that game that are green, which is kind of an issue because the main map that the game is played on, Summoner's Rift, is very green, and especially if you have a little bit of color blindness, sometimes it's just hard to differentiate the two colors. But when you turn color blindness on, it changes most. They were really bad about this, not doing it across the board, but a lot of spell effects were changed to something like blue, for instance, from green. It made your health bar, instead of being green, it made it yellow, which was I found it a lot easier to just see. for visibility. So, like, yeah, there are certain accessibility things that are just useful for a lot of people. Love having a lot of settings. Other new options, for instance, this is really neat. You can call a vote, I believe in the first round of a match, of a set at least, you can call a vote with your opponent of whether or not you both want to just forfeit the match at no penalty to either of you. So essentially, there's if you watch some footage of people playing online in the beta, you'll see a little thing on the bottom left corner which is like hold the I think it's like the start button or whatever. Basically, just hold down like the start button, and you will a thing will pop up. I'm assuming I haven't seen it used yet, but assuming what happens is once you hold it down for long enough, like a second or two, I'm imagining, a little vote will pop up to say, "Hey, do you want to just call the match right now, and then we can both just walk our separate ways?" Which is a wonderful feature for when you match up with someone with a bad connection. That's actually great. I know that I've matched up with plenty of people in SF5, and from the first 3 seconds I was like, oh god. And it's always the Kens, and it's always the grappler players. It's always them. It's always them with the bad connections. Just immediately you can tell, ooh, or the Akuma, one of the like Akuma Kage players, especially. I don't know what it is, man. Every time I run into one, I feel like they've got a weird connection. And that's like usually, you know, the what is the term? The courtesy, I guess. You know, the common courtesy is, oh, well, you once you match with someone online, you play the set. You play the set out. You play your best of 3, aka your first 2. You know. So after that first match, you rematch and finish the set. And there's just some people who I'm like, yeah, I gotta finish this. Even if it's like, I can tell that if I kind of focus and try to account for a random huge lag spike, I could beat them. Like, there's people that's like this. I've run into a lot of situations that are like, okay, this person's connection is horrible. This is awful. However, I think I can beat them in this one game, at least in this first match. But I don't, and maybe I could even, you know, rematch them and get my second win and then just leave. But I don't want to. I've given up potential wins, like further wins, just because the connection is that bad. So having this option to just go your separate ways and no one incurs a loss, it's just considered like a draw or whatever. Fantastic. Great. Very useful. Here's another thing that's really cool. Both players online can play on different stages. So you can be playing, for instance, there was like a tweet about this, I think, that I saw. There was a little clip, like comparing it even. Maximilian dude was playing, oh, I forget who it was. But he was playing someone else, another streamer, I think Li Joe, actually. And Max was on, I forget which stage. Max was on like one stage, and Li Joe, he was on, let's say, Guile's stage. He was on Guile's stage. Joe was on the restaurant stage, the Chinese restaurant stage. And it was literally a side-by-side of the exact same moment of their match, just side-by-side from both of their streams. And they're on different stages. That is super cool. And it solves a problem that is, it's like not the biggest thing in the genre, right? But it's like, there was like a little movement, which was actually spurred by Maximilian, which is, the grid is really boring to look at. Training stages are often very boring to look at, especially the Street Fighter ones. There's some good ones, like, I really like the MKX one, actually. Excuse me, actually, like, it does have like a look, it's got a bit of an aesthetic, it's like a excuse me, like a danger room thing from X-Men. Also, they have like the cameras, the screens in the back, which are like they show the match from like a different angle, and there's something about that where I always want to look at those. My brain likes that a lot. And then even if you play that stage online, it even has like interactables, like you throw like a hologram barrel at someone or something. I don't know how that works, but you know that one's cool. I always like the Marvel 2 one, like that weird, also like danger room type thing where it looks like you're in cyberspace. Yeah, but a lot of especially all the Street Fighter ones are just the grid. It's a padded cell. You're playing on graph paper. You're playing in a math text, a math notebook. So, this is like one of these just subtle problems. Mind you, I'm a little guilty of this because I love playing on the alternative grid in SF5, the second version they added where it's blue and black. I love that. It feels so good on my eyes. I just like having like, because that's the thing is like some people like the training stage. I actually like a lot of the training. I really like that training stage in particular. I like the simplicity and that there's nothing going on, and the colors are nice. And yeah, because I'm a weirdo. But a lot of people, they're like, yeah, that's boring. And when you watch tournament footage, everyone's just playing on that. So this became a problem in like the Capcom Pro Tour, for instance, where Capcom was like, oh no, this is a bad spectator experience. They're just watching two guys play in a math notebook for like 3 hours. What do we do? Let's ban the grid. You can no longer play on training stage, which a lot of players were upset about, especially ones who maybe had... There's always been this argument about like, oh, but some stages are laggy or whatever. I don't know how much water that holds. I do know that like if you're playing on a console, it could be more prone to overheating if you have a more visually busy stage. There's also just some stages that straight up give people nausea, like Rashid's stage, which I literally can't look at that thing for like in gameplay for like more than a couple seconds. It's so nauseating. So they just banned the grid, which was like a controversial thing, sort of, because especially because you're playing online. It's like there was some complaint from like tournament players. So what they had to do was they developed an in-house mod where if you were spectating a game, if you were spectating a match, you could see the match on a different stage. So the players were playing on training mode stage. This was their compromise. You can play on the grid, but we will develop a mod for our game that we will have at Capcom, and it will display a different stage for the sake of the audience's viewing experience, for a little visual variety. So in 6, they probably just took at least some of the things they learned from that. I don't even know if that's like the same tech or anything like that. It's developed on a different engine, so I wouldn't even be surprised if it was totally different. But they at least took the idea, and they just okay, now everyone can do that. And I'm assuming it even counts if you're like, you can even use it if you are spectating a match. But like if you're playing, you can pick your favorite stage and your favorite music, and you can play someone, and you can both get your stage and your own music, your own stage, your own music. Awesome. And it seems to be pretty smooth. Like it does not cause a problem. They probably tested this a lot. And a really neat thing is that if you pick random, which I think randomizes stage and music, I think there's like random options. Like there's options for what you want like in your random rotation. So you can actually deselect certain stages. Like you can deselect the grid if you're on random, so you'll never get it, or you'll only get the stages you like. Or you can like I think probably even like randomize which songs you get. maybe even like check those off the list if you don't want some songs to show up. So you'll get like a little randomized playlist between matches, because every time you rematch, I think at least I'm not sure exactly when it changes, if it's like a different like if you have to like play a different set entirely and maybe match up with someone else or what, but yeah, as you play and you play different matches, you'll cycle through different stages and different songs and stuff like that for a little variety. What a nice little quality of life feature. Just a little thing that was probably, honestly, this is a thing that's probably been possible for a while, like probably a really long time. And just never really had the work, never really seen as like a priority. So that, never seen as so much of a priority that they would put in the work needed to like make the tools to do it. If that was the case, if they needed to make tools, just, like why should we work on this? So that is very cool. It's just there's all these like little touches. That's one of the nice things, right? This is one of the overarching kind of like good, warm little feelings with SF6. It's like there's all these little things that make it feel like they care. Like they just care about the thing that they're making, and they want people who play it to have a good time. And that's all I want. That's all I ask, is that you develop it with a little bit of passion and not refer to a spreadsheet for every single creative decision. And it's just not, it feels good. It feels like you're in good hands, which is a rare thing from Capcom's fighting game division, which has had such a precarious, like, last 5-6 years. Yeah, so I'm not bummed necessarily about not playing it, because even still, there isn't really a character that I'm super into. Like, if I had it, I'd probably bounce around the cast. There's a training mode, which is really nice in the beta, which apparently this is like the best training mode in any fighting game ever, which is fantastic, which is great. And they even have like little drills you can do for like anti-airing and stuff like that, which is really neat. I would probably pick, if I had it, I'd probably go with Jamie, because I think he looks cool. But there isn't like necessarily a character I'm super like, oh, they're cool. JP I was interested in, Marisa, I'm not sure what her official name's gonna be yet. The big lady. Also curious about her. There was like a little leak. There was like a leak of audio files from the live commentary feature. And I first saw it and I was like, because, so basically, if you weren't keeping up with it, SF6 has this very funny, cool live commentary feature where they got like actual commentators who are like affiliated with Capcom and all that, to like people from the community, to record a shitload of dialogue or lines, and then they will like live commentate your match like a Madden game or something like that. And there was a leak of certain audio files where the live commentary is naming characters and names of their moves and implying things about them, right? Like, oh, they've got this buff on them. That's gonna mean this type of thing. It kind of took me by surprise a little bit, because it was like the video I watched was Rooflemongers, who's a wonderful channel for fighting game news. And he's like, oh, the first one up, because it's the one he was most interested in, was the leaks for Lily, who's like that tiny Mexican girl that hasn't been fully revealed yet. She's in like the ensemble thing, and she was obviously in the leak, but she hasn't like had a trailer or anything, and people were saying that, oh, she has like T-Hawk vibes, because T-Hawk's also Mexican. She's doing like a T-Hawk pose in the trailer, where she's just like singular, like a little piece of art of her. And I was expecting, I didn't know the nature of the leak until I heard the audio, so I was like, oh, leak about like Lily's moves or something, and then I just hear like Saint Vicious like doing the Mexican typhoon, and I'm like, that's what she sounds like? Huh? But no. So yeah, she basically seems like she's gonna be some kind of a take on T-Hawk, which I'm actually fine with. I think T-Hawk in his own way is cool. He is obviously, maybe, he was definitely designed by a bunch of Japanese people in kind of a bubble in 1992, but he's cool in a way. And I think when I made that, like, what I'd want in an SF6 roster, when I made that podcast, I think I even said, like, yeah, I would like T-Hawk to come back. They would have to, like, heavily redesign his visuals or some of his mannerisms, because it's a little over the top. Coming from a white guy, you know, I don't have T-Hawk's like a weird fusion of like they're again a Japanese person in 1992's idea of what a Mexican / Native American person is. And it's kind of weird. I'm sure you could find some real world analogs, but you know that's not what they were using. So like, yeah, him doing like the pose when he lands on you with like the hand up. I'm a white guy, right? I am a Caucasian fellow. I don't like to say that anything's like offensive if I'm not part of that group. But I can, like, certain things can give me like, you know, give me that feeling. Like, I'm not going to make a definitive statement in most cases. Usually if it's a case where everyone can say, like, yeah, it's kind of fucked up. But, like, is T-Hawk offensive? That's really, like, the individual who belongs to those groups to decide. I do know, however, that a character like Thunder from KI is universally beloved by Native Americans. I've never seen a single Native American person say that they don't like Thunder. He's so cool. So it seems like their redesign was... Oh, well, it's not really a redesign, but... I think Lily is going to be... One of the leaks implies that she's like his daughter, which about lines up. It roughly makes sense. I like the kind of new generation aspect that they're going with 6. Or like, oh, you know, Yin and Yang... Excuse me. They've been in enough games. We're going to have a guy who is inspired by them. So Jamie's got, like, part of their moves. But instead of just being, like, oh, it's just Yin and Yang combined, he's, like, sort of them combined, but he's got his own things going on with, like, the drink meter and, like, I think little, like, weird little drunken fist stances. Like, he's got his own thing going on, even though he's clearly reminiscent of those characters. Or Kimberly, who is just Guy... but cooler. We now have 3, at least, different guys, including Guy himself, and Guy is the most boring one of all of them. I hate to say this, Guy fans, but Zeku is so much cooler. Zeku is so much cooler. I think Kimberly is so much cooler, at least in motion. It's kind of like, what are they saying? I don't know. I just started talking. I started my sentence. What is it kind of like? I don't know, Taigen. Yada yada. Who else? Yeah, I mean, we don't know too many new characters. It's really just Kimberly, Jamie. I think there's the only new. I'm expecting, I would not be surprised if that French girl, Manon, I think, has some kind of able DNA in her. Maybe literally, like she's his cousin or something like that. She's a sparring partner, maybe. That would be interesting. So, for the most part, I think they've done... I like the new generation kind of quality to most of the new characters. Because they have enough of the old characters where it's like, oh, it almost feels like a passing of the torch type of thing. It's like, oh, we got some new characters who are like who are kind of interpreting older characters' gameplay and aesthetics, and then you got the old characters who are also still gaining new tools and new little tricks and things like that. I'm very down for it. Was I saying something? I think I got sidetracked. But so much to say. Oh yeah, Lily, yeah, all the leaks and stuff. So it sounds like from the leaks that Marisa, that character, has like a ton of super armor, which I've never really played a character with a ton of super armor, but that sounds fun. So I want to see what she's about. So either her or JP or maybe Jamie, because I thought Jamie looked cool. Yeah. So all smiles on that front. People have been really positive about that. Oh yeah, and they finally have an in-game ping indicator. Jesus Christ, and for rollback and delay frames. Yeah, those three things: ping, rollback frames, and delay frames. Fantastic. Thank you. And even like a bar, like a general like 5-bar indicator. Fantastic. So